So I'm here with Donna Carnow, and she's someone that I just started working with this year. I don't know, it was like you came out of nowhere. I was watching Allison over the pandemic, and then she was training with you, and then all of a sudden it was like you were everywhere, and you are absolutely amazing.
Thank you so much.
So I'm excited to get to know you more as we work together more, but let's start with this Q&A.
Great.
Okay, so let's start with your name, where you grew up, and how would you describe what you do?
That's a good question. So my name is Donna Carnow. I'm from Wilmette, Illinois, which is just north of Chicago, like 15 minutes north. And I am a pole dance artist, specializing in pole dance and aerial pole, specifically.
Okay, cool. And which do you prefer? What's your favorite apparatus?
The challenging question. Honestly, I love both for different reasons. I've been pole dancing for almost 10 years, just like 9 and some change, and it's one of my, first loves. But that also being said, aerial pole is my preferred modality to perform, just because of how dynamic it is, and just like the feeling when you perform on it, and when you're just flying around through space. It's like unlike anything else I can even describe. It's so much fun.
And what was your trajectory that actually got you to pole? Because I noticed, at one time you had said that you taught power vinyasa.
I did. So yeah, my movement history it's been kind of a long journey. I started, I didn't really have a movement background at all. But I grew up in a very Jewish community, and I kept winning the dance-offs and bar and bat mitzvahs when I was 13. I'm not kidding. And so I was like, wow, I want to take class. So I took some commercial hip-hop classes at first. And then the high school that I went to had a really strong modern dance program. So I studied modern dance in high school, and then when I went to college, I majored in modern dance. And when I got to school, I started pole dancing recreationally. There was this student organization called Illini Pole Fitness, but there was this club that where students taught other students how to pole dance, and it was chaos because no one really, everyone was kind of figuring it out. The form was much younger than it is now. The industry has changed a lot over the past 10 years. But yeah, I started doing it, and I was terrible at it. It was truly terrible. But I loved how hard it was, and I loved how humbling it was, and how do you say, it's so codified. There's such a clear, tangible experience in your progression. You can't do one skill one day, and then the next day, all of a sudden, you can lift your body weight in this certain position, or you can navigate this transition with ease. And so to me, that felt super addictive and super exciting, and also super physical and athletic, and at the same time artistic. So yeah, I just kept doing it, and then I started doing aerial pole about 1.5 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, I just jumped 8 years. There was a lot that happened in between.
Because I know there was a yoga instructor in there somewhere.
Yes, there is a power vinyasa moment. She's doing great. I used to do power vinyasa yoga recreationally, and then when I moved to New York, I enrolled in a power yoga teacher training.
Yeah.
And I did that through Core Power Yoga.
Yeah.
Where I taught power vinyasa for a couple years, full time. It was a big part of my life.
But but when you were doing your yoga practice, were forward folds something that you enjoyed even back then?
Yes,
okay.
I did. My entire identity is just a hamstring. Yeah, a lot of forward folding, a lot of compression, but that's where I learned a lot of these kind of unique ways of organizing your body, and these kind of wacky externally rotated positions, but at the same time building strength in these ranges of motion. And it's been a wild journey to take those skills and look at how they can go up on an apparatus in the air.
Right. Well, it's not just up, but it's you're not supported by the ground, and you're using different muscles to stabilize, and because it's a lot of, not a lot, but some of what you do, it's the leg behind the head, that comes from yoga, which is really cool. And I love the mixing of disciplines there.
Mm-hmm. It definitely is. It's really fun. It's really it's just different what you were kind of talking about in terms of how your body is supported in space. just on a pole or on an aerial pole, because you aren't on the ground, it's all about like the activation of your contact points into the apparatus and creating oppositional forces in order to like stay up on the apparatus. And so it's really weird to be like, okay, like my leg's behind my head, but I need to hang on with my like left inner thigh skin cells, you know what I mean? By like pulling my weight away from the apparatus, you know, like there's a lot of like kind of math that has to happen in order to get there.
Yeah, and I think that's why like when you're saying like, oh, I need to adjust this just a little bit just to get this here, and I'm like, okay, I don't see it, but I trust you.
It's the most like minute little things ever. It's really wild.
But then how did you start incorporating the leg behind the head? Because usually when you see pole, you think about, oh, back bend. So then let's talk about the leg behind the head stuff.
Right. So honestly, a lot of this exploration for leg behind the head poses and skills that I've been incorporating in pole and aerial pole, it's been taking a lot of like kind of more foundational techniques or like foundational skills, like if you're familiar with the vernacular, like brass monkey or inside leg hang or like just other kinds of skills like that, and then looking at how can we take that skill, or like machine gun is another example, and like how can I challenge my range of motion, still maintain my contact points, but then like also add like this flair essentially. So a lot of the skills that I'm doing are not actually like, I mean, they're advanced in terms of the range of motion, and sometimes the strength to hold that range of motion, but they're actually like relatively simple skills, but just like at a more extreme like range of motion essentially. Yeah.
They're like basics, but with extra on top.
Extra spice on it for sure. But like, I think that's a good lesson, just like in any kind of variation of any skill that you do, there's always like a foundation or a baseline that you work on, and then it's a progression from that foundation, right? Which sometimes we forget. We look at something crazy and you're like, how did that even happen? Like, what is this even thing? But then you can find like, it's like lineage where it's from in like a level 1 or a level 2 class, like a more intermediate basic thing.
I feel like that's how you teach also. Do you just break things down like that?
You have to.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to. And especially like teaching, so I also teach full-time in New York, and I also perform full-time, feeling very thankful. But teaching is a really amazing but also challenging experience because everyone's bodies are so different in terms of body proportion, range of motion, just like people's familiarity with the apparatus. But if you even think about it for like leg behind the head, based on like how much space you have like with your femurs in relation to your shoulders, that makes a huge difference. And if you can experience that compression, the strength of your hip flexors, how open your hamstrings are, there's just like so many components to get there. How much rotation you have from your hip and from your knee.
Right.
So it's like, how do I find progressions that support everyone to get to that place, but at the same time, people in the room that can do them at more advanced progression, how do I challenge them?
Yeah.
And so that's been just like a very long journey in my own teaching career.
For sure.
And I feel super thankful that I have the opportunity to teach as much as I do, through some trial and error, and through just working with a lot of different bodies, have learned a lot about what kinds of progressions to offer for folks.
Yeah, because I think that's just like the basis of teaching is just out like the time and the experience, and then just like the exposure to like everyone's unique body and what they're capable of.
This is so true. Yeah, everyone's different, and like I think that's like no one does you like you do in you. So it's like people find their strengths and then they put that on their apparatus, and that's their style. That's what they do, and that's what I also love about pole. It's so individualized. Okay,
so just to wrap this up, I have one question because so Donna is the U.S. 2022 U.S. National Pole Art Champion. We were so proud of you, like all of us in New York, all of us on social media. But she actually cut her hair in her performance.
I did.
Like it was long and now it's short.
And now she's short.
And so when you were up there on stage, was there any kind of like hesitation? Like, oh my God, what am I doing? What if the scissors don't work? Or was it just like joyful freedom, like expression?
It felt all kinds of crazy, Renee. Because it's something, especially for like a competitive space, it's so rare to do something that you can't rehearse. Yeah. Like it's such a highly rehearsed process, like to be in a competitive like on a competitive stage, like these people, like I knew I was gonna compete in nationals for like 10 months. So I was like rehearsing my skills over and over again for 10 months, but like you can only do this once.
Yeah.
So definitely had some like manic rehearsals of like taking a wig and practicing cutting braids off the wig. Like in the performance I did, I was a marionette character, and I start by like freeing myself, and like it's this kind of whole process of learning how to like use the body and this very like disjointed physicality. And so halfway through in this like character transition, I cut off my braids. And so I was like, you know, if we only get through one, we get through one, we go, we'll fix it later, like whatever. And it was a risk, but the reward was pretty epic.
And you cut both of them off.
Plenty of time,
Yeah.
had plenty of time, was no big deal whatsoever. And now I definitely am never gonna have long hair again. Like I'm obsessed with having short hair. It's like so fun to dance in. And yeah, it was a really fun experience to do something you can't rehearse.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Oh, thank you so much for
Thank
having
you.
me.
Of course. We close with anything? I don't know.
I guess the only thing I would say is like, yeah, everyone's journey, like for pole dancing especially, like everyone's journey is so different, and you are your own yardstick. You can't worry about what other people's journeys have looked like. My journey has been a really long one, has been a very humbling one. And just, I think the most supportive thing you can do is just like be consistent in your practice and surround yourself with people that support you. And because
Absolutely.
you can, it's like,
Yeah.
that's it. Like you can do anything in this world if you have people that support you in this process and along the way.
Yeah.
And I feel really thankful for my support system. So
Yeah.
thank you. And thanks you guys. Thank you so
Cool.
much.
Thank you.